mouth get in my way. I got my breath, I got my faith, and I remember why I came.
I feel glorious, glorious. Got a chance to start again. I was born for this, born for this. It's who I am, how could I forget? I made it through the darkest part of the night, and now I see the sunrise. Now I feel glorious, glorious.
We're back.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
Is this thing on? Okay. So, welcome to IMU podcast number 11. Full disclosure, we actually just filmed like 40 minutes and then realized that we messed up the mic. There was no sound, so we're refilming. Yeah, so it's going to go a lot smoother this time. But
Maybe.
And at the same time, it was actually the most amazing content. You guys just missed out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was a good video.
So let's actually talk about the same thing, which is really it'll actually be a lot more polished, right?
Maybe.
So we're gonna start out with the same thing. So this started because Ashley saw a interview earlier today.
Yes.
Okay, so let's tell the story again.
All over again.
Yes.
So, I watched a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched a YouTube video of a spiritual teacher who, this isn't going to go as smooth.
Do you want me to tell it?
me.
And then you jump in, or do you want to tell it?
Yeah, you tell it. I'll
Okay.
jump in.
So, Ashley does a lot of different things, right? She's very, very talented and lots of experience. So, she actually saw an interview with a spiritual teacher today. So she had heard about him from other people, but the way other people had described him, it was more like his way is the right way, everyone else is like wrong.
Yeah.
And so she actually always thought this guy kind of had his head up his ass.
Yes.
And then when she actually heard him in the interview today, she had a completely different experience because there was like a degree of humility. He was just a human being, and when the way he presented himself, and before she felt a calling to study his stuff, or the stuff that he's doing at a very high level, in spite of almost like having this like negative feeling, and then now that almost like helped align and clear everything up, so she feels a lot more excited.
Yeah.
And also after the interview, she actually felt a lot more calm, grounded, and just like way better mood and higher energy. Kind of capture everything?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what we were talking about is how it's not necessarily what you say, right? It's actually who you're being when you're even talking, presenting your information that really lands and makes an impact on other people.
Right.
So
Because it shifts how you say
yes.
it,
So
how it's showing up.
yeah. So how do you feel about the stuff that he teaches now?
I feel inspired by it.
Okay.
Definitely interested to learn more.
Okay, and then the stuff maybe that like what do you feel like has opened up? Like say before you were learning it, but it was like a constant battle between I think this is good material, but I don't know about the people. Good material.
Right. There was a big part of it where I thought it was interesting material for sure, but I also had this like, who am I actually learning this from? Like, because they also talk about their like dark forces and things, and like my previous belief system was that like all of it's love and light. If you look deeper into darkness, you'll find love and light, which he does actually say, but so I feel like I've gone off track. What was your question?
So how do you feel about the stuff that he's
Teaching now?
teaching now, or what it like kind of like what he represents? Or what's the like what kind of opened up for you?
So when I was listening to him, I felt that oneness and connection and community and inclusiveness. There was no like I am an all-powerful God
Right.
in the human form. He was showing up as a human
Right.
and telling us stories of how like he hadn't learned joy yet, and he was telling his meditation students, you can't laugh, only fools laugh. And that was the example of like he was like, I hadn't learned joy yet, and it's like kind of a laughable.
Yeah, actually, when you
instance
said
now.
that, I had a similar. I actually thought. So like my take on fitness at the gym is very different now from 5-6 years ago. Right? I used to like, you know what? You should always work on getting better, good form, go for PRs. Mobility is super important, right? And then over the years, it's like there's just so many more aspects to it, right? Like people are there just to have fun, socialize. Everyone's goal is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, why did I have such a stick up my butt before? You know?
Yeah.
Like the people that want to do it, like they'll do it and they'll appreciate it. I'll help them. But like, a lot of it was like I was projecting my goals on the
Onto
people
them.
at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't say that in the last one. See?
Yeah.
Boom.
Video's gonna be
Yeah.
even better.
So I think like what she's really highlighting is who you're being is even more important than the
What you say.
message you're
Right, because I was hearing, and the stories basically were just stories of him and his upbringing and who he is. I'd heard many stories from multiple people actually of who he is. Someone's here. I don't know who it is, but I'd heard multiple stories of who he was, and I just had previously got this feeling of like, like almost like a bullshit meteor going off, because the way they were sharing it with me was like he's this almighty, like great human, and kind of like the feel of like he's better than everyone, he's the one that knows everything, he's right, whatever, just a lot of that. But when I heard the same stories from him, and he was, being a human and had a lot of humility and was like joking around, it was completely different, and I was able to,
Okay.
I felt like I could connect with him more.
Let's actually cut here, and then we'll go back and record. Wait, someone's here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll edit this back. We had an interruption.
New client.
Yeah, what were you talking about?
I don't know.
Okay, anyways, but you were talking about how watching this guy in person, you felt very different
Yeah.
about his work
And I
and
also
about him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also really like the fact that I, after watching the video, felt very calm and centered within myself, and like my energy increased, and I was showing up very differently than I was just like in the morning before the video. And I feel I've felt that way with you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is why I can like identify it now. Because like, I mean, I've had a conversation with you at Whole Foods when I'm feeling really poopy, and then I remember towards the middle of the conversation and at the end, I was like I was in a completely different state, and I was like, did you do something? And you told me you did, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you. And the point is though that like it's not necessarily just what you say, right? So
To your being.
so you can out logic someone, like make better points, know more facts, and just completely destroy them in say a debate, or even if you're presenting your side.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually make them feel closer to you or buy into whatever it is that you're talking about, right? What has to back the message you're sending for it to really impact people is love, and then also a compelling vision, like something more, and that's where people buy in. So whether this is on social media, a YouTube video, in person, right, and like that message transmits across that. So the guy filmed this YouTube video when?
A while. I think it was a while ago. I think it was like 2017 or.
Right. So it was
something.
3 years ago, but it's digitized, right, and it's stored, but that message actually still transmits across and she feels different. Okay, so the last one we actually did it at the end. We might as well just do it now, and we talk about something else. Okay, so what I noticed is over the last like year and a half, 2 years, more and more people are actually be able to experience something else. So they basically have a different sense. Last week we talked about intuition. So this week we'll actually demonstrate it a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna just put my attention on 2 different things. I'll actually tell you, I didn't say it last time. So one, I actually put my attention out there where I have more energy, and the other one, I actually put my attention inside on myself and into the past. Okay, I'll do a couple where I tell you when I'm changing, when I switch it, and I'll have a couple where I won't say it. And then, you know, if you guys actually experience something, let that at least be some kind of experience where, you know, that you know where you put your attention and how you're showing up is always impacting people. And sometimes it can actually be recorded and it'll still have the same effect. Okay, so let's actually start that. So starting out, I'm gonna put my attention outside. I'm gonna move my attention inside. I'm going to move it even deeper. Move it back outside. And I'm going to move it back inside. And I'm going to end up putting it back outside, and we'll end there. Hold on. I'll actually end on this. I'm going to focus on humor real quick, okay? Okay, got it. Okay. So, it's like a quick demo of that, right? And all I did was literally just put my attention on something out there, something in here. At the end, I focused on where I experience humor, okay? The point though is who you're being makes way more of an impact than what you're saying, information, all that stuff. And we start talking about congruence, right? So,
and I just want to, when we were sitting at Whole Foods talking, I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but we weren't talking about, it wasn't, because you know how like with like talk therapy, you'll talk about, okay, how are you feeling? Why are you feeling this?
yeah.
Like, you know, we weren't doing any of that.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about my state at all.
Yeah.
I just like my state just started to rise and rise and rise to the like to such a drastic point where I actually really noticed that something really shifted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we weren't talking about. And then the YouTube video, he was saying the same stories. I had heard those stories already, but it was completely different the way he was saying it. And it's not because the story was different, but it was because it was coming, you know, from him rather than from a other source. And
like, because we had a video before this, so I forgot, but what I talked about was that a huge shift, or a way to look at it, is you start actually realizing that there isn't one objective reality.
Right.
Right. So maybe starting out, that person is arrogant. Okay. Yeah. Look at him. Look at all the stuff he does. Look at this, the people he teaches. Look at the way he presents his stuff. Right. when you get there isn't one objective reality, all of a sudden, very, very often what you notice is that's actually my experience of him. That's my thought. I actually feel these emotions when I think of him. So it's actually all how you're experiencing or how you're perceiving him, right? Now all of a sudden there isn't one objective reality. There's however he is, there's however other people think about him, there's how you experience him. Now when there isn't one objective reality, that's when a lot of the magic can happen, right? So for you, right up until that point, you liked a lot of his teachings, and some of the people involved, you didn't know what to think, right? And then what happened when you saw the interview? All of a sudden it's like, wow, I actually had some stage 2, as you would call it, so some polarizing thoughts about him.
Yes.
And so like you actually notice your thoughts and you didn't identify with your thoughts, and that
Right.
made a huge difference.
And I also noticed, and I said this in the last video, but the combination, the energy combination between me and the other people telling his story, they also had a bit of that stage 2 polarization. And because I have a bit of stage 2 polarization as well, I actually tend to, when I'm faced with some stage 2 polarization, I tend to polarize in the way where I say, okay, no, I'm moving away from that. That's wrong, that's bad. That's also stage 2.
Yeah.
But so when I'm presented with that, that's how I tend to respond. I tend to retreat and move away from that. So like that mixture of it all was creating that baseline reality of what that was at the time.
Yeah.
But then when he was sharing his own story, he was coming again at it from a different energy level. And he was very authentic and congruent with everything that he was saying. So like I had previously been like, the conversation had been like here at like this like level 2, we'll say stage 2.
Yeah.
And then he came at it from here, sharing his story. And so then your perspective just shifts, and then you like you're in this new state, and it's just yeah.
So like we were actually talking about it earlier, right? Like stage 2. So for example, like we used Harry Potter as an example, right?
Because I have a strong belief that Harry Potter is great.
Yeah. So like if I go, you know what, J.K. Rowling is overrated. She just wrote a children's book, and then just because some people think it's great, now you feel like you have to buy in. But like her stuff is actually really simplistic.
It's only for children.
Yeah, it's only for people who don't want to live in the real world, right? And it's just a poorly written book. It sucks, right? Like, so I don't believe any of that. But if I go about it that way, so basically you stage 2, so if you're polarizing, so basically there's a right and a wrong, or either one side that's on the side of righteousness, justice, and the other side is evil and wrong. Usually where people's response or where they want to go is, okay, well, they want to actually meet them at that level and polarize back, right? So like you'll either jump on board and totally agree, like, yeah, screw J.K. Rowling's, or you'll actually defend, right? So that, and either way, I'll actually feel pretty good. Well, not pretty good. I'll actually feel like I was able to feed on some kind of energy response back, right? And what you experienced while watching that YouTube video was that you can actually let the person, or let the whatever needs feeding, feed on something else, which is love, and humility, right? Like being a human being and actually getting that connection. And then it doesn't have to be, you don't even have to actually argue the point, right? You can actually be there, listen, let the person express, acknowledge, and then let them feed on something else, right? Rather than whatever it is. So what's really cool, right? What's today? Like June 11th. So it's been about a week and a half since the protest started. At first, it was just anger, and there was a lot of pushback. There's still that stuff going on now, right? But what I noticed is a lot more people, specifically Black people, because that's what the focus is on, sharing their stories. A lot of pain. and anger, right, of their experiences growing up and how it made them feel. And then also what I noticed too, a lot of it is actually being able to express their parents' generation or their grandparents' generation or even further back. And it's even able to be presented in a way where it's so easy to be empathetic about it, to actually experience it and acknowledge it. And it's not actually not presented in a way where it has to be directed at someone. Like it's your ancestors' fault, or it's your fault, or it's the system's fault, or it's the police's fault, the government's fault, whoever's fault it is, right? It doesn't have to be directed. It's just here is the pain that we've been experiencing, and it needs to come out. You know, it needs to come out now, because if we push down even more, other bad things are going to happen, right? Like anger and pain isn't a bad thing. That's part of being a human being.
Yeah.
Right. Like we have to treat it like it has to be positive and positivity and love all the time. No, it's being human. You know, being human. Yeah.
The interview I watched, the spiritual teacher, he said we're not here to be spiritual. We're here to be human.
Yeah.
Like we're not here to we're here to actually have a human experience. And that's what we tend to forget a lot. Like when we go, like when we, so many of us are in these, like, we're doing these spiritual teachings and we're following the spiritual path. And a lot of times we can forget that we are in human form. We're here to have a human experience, not just as spiritual. So it's not going to be love and light all the time.
Yeah.
You got to feel the human stuff.
Yeah, like if you're love and light all the time, you're not even relatable, right? Like, what's the point of existing? Just go in a cave and just meditate your life away.
Yeah. And I remember in the last video when you talked about how, like, these people they're sharing the pain and the anger from their ancestors that weren't acknowledged at that time, and now is the time where they could be. It's that all that energy is coming through. It's not, because I used to say when I was younger, I remember like Black Awareness Month when I was in high school, and the blacks at our school was like, yeah, you gotta like treat me right, you treat me better. I'm like, you were not a slave.
Yeah.
I was like, I did not enslave you. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
But so polarizing, and then you wanted to push back. Okay.
Right. Yeah. But now I realize too that we all hold on to this ancestral energy, and we talked about that in ayahuasca as well. We're holding on to our ancestors' pain, and this time right now we can acknowledge the pain that we feel. It might not be ours. It might have stemmed from our ancestors. It might have stemmed from like thousands of years ago, but that energy is still here, that wants to be acknowledged and transformed and liberated.
So, and again, like I'm saying this not like I did this like perfectly, right? So if someone says Black Lives Matter, and then again, it's so bastardized online, right? And then someone says all lives matter. It's not about the logic of it. It's that you're not actually acknowledging the pain and the emotion and the whatever needs to be acknowledged there. Yeah. Right? Like you're doing it for that, not the logic of it. Right? And then we went into the example of, let's say like you and Dominic, right?
The authentic acknowledgement.
If you feel like you're not heard, you're wronged, whatever, and you express it in a way that maybe, let's just say it's not logical. Right. Okay? Yeah. And he just goes, nope, you're not being logical, I'm not going to hear it. How well does that go over?
It doesn't go very well.
It doesn't go over? What do you do?
It feels like it heightens. I know. It feels like it heightens within me. Like I get angrier.
Yeah, it's almost like it'll feel better if you just have the fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You want the...
Right. Now, let's just say he's read some good books, right? And it goes like, when a woman, blah, blah, blah.
How to win friends and influence.
Yeah, you have to ask what's wrong. You have to listen, and then like just like parrot, like basically repeat back what they say to them. It's like, oh, I can totally see why you feel that. Like it would be awful. Right?
Yeah, I'm so like, sorry you feel that way. I'm like, no, you're making it worse.
Yeah, you're making it worse, right? So what's the difference? How come sometimes when you're acknowledged, it feels good, and sometimes when you're acknowledged, it's just like you're manipulating me, right? So you can say the same words,
but who you're being, because
but it lands different.
yeah, and the intention behind it as well,
Yeah.
because sometimes he's just saying it, he's like, oh, this is what you're supposed to say so that she can like calm down,
Right.
and this can like dissolve so we can be done with this,
Right.
rather than saying it to actually connect with me and hear me.
Right. So the intention and the goal underneath is really important. If
It makes it
So if you're doing
a
it so you
difference.
look good, if you're doing it so you don't have to deal with a problem, or you can kick the problem later, or you can hopefully it goes away.
Right.
Or if you win an argument, the other person can feel it. You know,
Yeah.
they might not be able to verbalize it.
But there's, yeah, definitely you can feel a difference.
Yeah, but there's no hiding. Okay, this is what's really, really cool about this. Like, it doesn't matter how flowery or fancy your word sounds. It's either congruent or it's not.
Right.
Right. And when it's congruent, it feels good. And when it's not, it's not. And when we're actually talking about like instigators, like assholes, right? There's some instigators or people that just make like inappropriate jokes, whatever. But you actually kind of love the guy. Usually, it's a guy, right? And then sometimes it's like so obvious that that person is just trying to cover up for an insecurity, right? Or they're doing it because they feel like they need attention. They're just constantly doing it for attention, and it doesn't actually. Something about it is just not congruent. So like they could be making the jokes, but actually it feels even more gross than the person who's just always like going around. Like to me, it feels more gross than the person that's like always trying to say the right things and present themselves in a different way, but it feels like fake or artificial, right? Like you can actually be totally congruent and then just express where you're at but not doing it so you could drag other people down with you, doing it so you can actually just be vulnerable, and then the other person will feel a lot more related to you. You know, like we have so many good examples. Okay, so we're talking about like pro athletes, right? And then like sometimes you see like on camera pro athletes like, oh, I just want to thank my teammates and thank God for really like getting me the success I have today. And then like I'm like, you don't think that. Like, you know, you just don't feel it from the person. It's like, and then usually when I think too is like this person is just not self-aware, and it's just like it's almost like they're going through the motions. It just doesn't feel like a human being that's actually conscious.
Right. And then I said it felt boring.
Yeah, and you say it feels boring, right? And then there's other people, you say it, and like when they say it, it's like I almost feel like I'm gonna cry. Like why, right? Like they're saying the same topic, they're covering the same topic, saying almost the same things. It's not because they're crying that actually, even though a lot of times it does happen, but you're actually touched by it because it's congruent. Congruence is so important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I explain it because I'm very visual, so the way I see it in my head is when you're just trying to say the right thing, it feels like it's just an outline of something, like there's no like substance there, so it feels boring to me. And when it is authentic and congruent, it feels like there's life and there's color and there's substance within the shape. So I mean, like it feels like it's full of life versus just kind of like.
So what's really cool, right? I'll simplify. So there's authenticity and congruence, right? And then a outcome, that intention that's actually focused on benefiting more people, like a lot more people. So authenticity, congruence, benefiting more people. Okay, to do that, you have to have more energy to do it, and then the people around you feel better in the moment and afterwards, and it has like this rippling effect. Okay. This one's like way shorter. Our last video was like 35 minutes. Right now we're at 20 minutes.
I think me telling the story in the beginning took a while.
Is there anything?
He's very concise when he tells things. I'm like,
See, like that's the problem though. Then, because then people, I'm having a conversation. It's like, for me, it's really either very simple or very, very deep and complex about like getting into like the weeds of something, right? But I don't like a lot of details. Like, for example, if I'm talking about how I got out of bed today, right? I'm not gonna be like, well, I got out of bed today, and then I thought of doing this podcast. But I remember I actually got to put in my the mouthwash first, the Neem's mouthwash.
Yeah, man.
Right, and on my way there, I actually got distracted by my phone, so I had to look at it. And then when I was looking, like that kind of detail, like I want to cut all of that out as much as possible, which actually a lot of time makes my the stories not as compelling, because like I got out of bed today.
Yeah, where I could say like I got out of bed, it was really hard to get out of bed, and my eyes felt really tired.
Yeah.
And then
That's also
yeah.
that's actually also like a characteristics of masculine and feminine energy. Masculine energy is a lot more direct. Feminine energy, which think energy and they're just masculine, feminine components, right? Feminine energy is a lot more into the details and including other people. So you're bringing other people into the world. They actually feel a lot more connected to you, right? Where I'm not just like, got out of bed. There's no emotional connection to that. It's just what happened, right? So obviously the masculine is better. No,
Obviously.
no, yeah. I actually heard there's a lady called Alison Armstrong, or her name is Alison Armstrong, and she teaches workshops for women to understand men better. It's like brilliant, like the stuff she says. She's like one of the only women that I've heard out there, and when she's describing what guys are actually thinking and feeling, how we're processing things, it's like I feel like I'm acknowledged. Like she actually gets me, right? One of the very few.
Cool.
And she says women aren't actually good at multitasking the way that guys perceive it, because like for men, and then for me especially, if anyone that knows me, right, just like ultra focus on one thing, and then it's hard for me to pay attention to anything else. For women, it's not that you're ultra focused on everything, it's that you're actually not focused on anything, and it's a biological design. So it's called a diffused awareness. So like if you make it to if you're gonna go like, hey, I'm gonna go get the mail today, right? Maybe as you're walking in the driveway, you're like, oh, I actually, the grass is getting long. I think like, you mow the lawn or get someone to mow the lawn. And then as you go a little bit further, you notice, wow, okay, actually the car's dirty. I need to wash the car. You might actually even do a little bit. It's almost like you could start something and then leave it and go do something else. You can have all these things open at once and you can actually get back to it later. So you can do one thing and then do something else and do something else and put it down, and whereas like guys, they're a lot more task oriented when they need to complete it, which is why like if you look typically on a browser, right, like the guy sees the girl's browser, there's like 50 tabs open. It's like, oh my god, if you went to the bathroom, those would all be closed, right? Like, but it's like, how can you leave all these tabs open? So well, yeah, because that's saving a spot for that. I'm going to get back to that later.
You're talking about masculine and feminine, right?
I'm talking about like qualities of how how we manifest is like we have males have more of a masculine core. We still have the feminine energy,
yeah,
but it's just more of
generally,
a masculine, and then
masculine.
Females generally have more of the feminine, and that's why it gets associated with gender, but it's actually not gender. It's just the quality of the energy.
We both have both. Yeah, because I was thinking that.
Yeah, well, we both have both, and that's where like when we did the ayahuasca, I really got to experience masculine, feminine energy outside of gender. But when we talk about it, typically where we want to go is we just tie it to gender, right? And then what I'm talking about specifically was what Alison Armstrong said, as far as diffused awareness. So typically how women get things done, which is actually having all these things kind of floating, and then you can put your attention on this and this and this. And then more for men, it's like attention on one thing, have to actually do more of that, then get it done. And then we could do the next thing and the next thing. So like if I have 50 tabs open, it would actually drive me nuts, because I'm like, oh my God, like there's too much. I just need to actually get that one tab closed. Then I could go on to the next one. Maybe I could handle like 5 or 6 tabs.
Yeah, but as you're saying this, like I've actually experienced kind of too much feminine, where there's there isn't enough focus to complete the one thing that needs to be completed. Yeah. And if there are too many tabs open or too much open, then it can be overwhelming. So you need to bring that masculine in to bring a little structure and
right. So it's like, and it's again not gender related, right? That's not what we're making it. It's literally talking about the quality of the energy, and there's a lot of different books on it. Way of the Superior Man, not talking about men being superior. It's talking from like a guy standpoint on how masculine and feminine energy works. The ayahuasca thing is just like you get to actually experience it outside of gender, and then you can actually utilize both. Okay, we just have like a core nature, and you could also use the feminine energy. Like if I actually did the thing I did earlier, I focus on feminine energy, I can do that.
Oh, why don't we do it?
You want me to do it?
Yeah, so they can like feel it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably better if you do it. Well, more effective. Okay, I'll do it. Okay.
Why was it more effective
Okay.
if I do it?
So I'll do.
Oh, if I do feminine?
Yeah, so I'll do masculine energy, then I'll do feminine energy, and then I'll do what probably is the most effective, which is a masculine core with feminine branches.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so first one, I'll just focus on masculine energy. Okay. And usually for guys, especially, they'll feel almost like a little combative because that's how masculine energy challenges each other and grows. Okay, and I'm going to focus on feminine energy. Probably low, let's see. And that one's harder for me to get by itself. I think I got it. And now I'm going to focus on a masculine core with feminine branches. Well, I should go back to masculine first. So it's masculine. And now it's going to be the masculine core with feminine branches. And this form is a lot more efficient because it already encompasses both. So you can actually use it. Well, I can use it a lot easier. Okay. Anything else? I'm gonna fall asleep.
Your masculine core with feminine branches almost felt more feminine than just your feminine. To
Yeah,
me.
probably. It's because just trying to get pure feminine, it literally feels like it's a flow. So like if I try to just follow it, does it just feel focused on feminine?
Yeah, it's harder for you.
It actually feels like it's harder to really like get a grasp on it. Yeah. Whereas like when it's like grounding and you can feel the branches, it's easier.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Anyways, right under 30 minutes. Okay. So what I nominate, the song I nominate is Under the Sea. Was that what I?
Little Mermaid. Yeah, that's what
Little
you said.
Mermaid, Under the
He had
Sea.
to think about it for
There you go.
a moment or two on
Yeah.
the last video.
Boom.
Bye.
Ariel, listen to me. The human world, it's a mess. Life under the sea is better than anything they got up there. The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake. You dream about going up there, but that is a big mistake. Just look at the world around you, right here on the ocean floor. Such wonderful things around you. What more is you looking for? Under the sea, under the sea. Darling, it's better down where it's wetter. Take it from me. Up on the shore, they work all day. Out in the sun, they slave away. While we devoting full time to floating under the sea. Down here, all the fish is happy as off through the waves they roll. The fish on the land ain't happy. They shot 'cause they in the bowl. But fish in the bowl is lucky. They in for a worse fate. One day when the boss get hungry,
Yes, you got me on the plate.
but no, under the sea, under the sea. Nobody beat us, fry us, and eat us in fricassee. We what the land folks loves to cook. Under the sea, we have to hook up. We got no troubles. Life is the bubbles under the sea. Under the sea. Since life is sweet here, we got to be here naturally. Even the sturgeon and the ray, they did the earth and start to play. We got the spirit, you got to hear it under the sea. The lute play the flute, the cop play the hop, the players play the bass and they sound the job. The bass play the brass, the chub play the tub. The flute is the duke of soul. The way he can play the lings on the strings, the chub rocking on the blackfish. He sings this belt and this front. They know where it's at. They know that blowfish blow. It's music to me. What do they got? A lot of sun. We got a hot crustacean band. Each little clown here know how to jam here under the sea. Each little slug here cutting a rug here under the sea. Each little snail here know how to whale here. That's why it's hotter under the water. Yeah, we in luck here down in the muck here under the sea. Ariel, listen to me.